The European View podcast. Your place to navigate the insights of our policy journal, brought to you by the Martens Centre. With Sara Pini.
Hello and welcome to the European View podcast, your new way to navigate through the main issues of our policy journal with valuable insights from the authors themselves. I'm Sara Pini, Senior Research Officer at the Martens Centre, and today I'm happy to welcome you to a sort of special crossover episode because our guest today is Loredana Teodorescu, who is the host of Her and EU, another Martens Centre podcast, which deals with gender equality, women's role in society, in politics, etc. So welcome, Loredana.
Thank you so much, Sara. It's great to be here.
Besides hosting leading women from all fields and walks of life in this great podcast that I really recommend to everyone, Loredana is also a member of the Martens Centre Academic Council. She's head of EU and International Affairs at the Istituto Luigi Sturzo in Rome, and she's president of Women in International Security, or WISE, in Italy. And actually, we speak about that in the second part of our podcast. But first, let's start as usual with the article that Loredana wrote in the latest issue of the European View, titled Women on the Move, Understanding the Female Face of Migration to Develop Targeted Policies. Of course, you can find this and all the other articles of the European View on our website, martenscenter.eu.
So, Lore, first of all, what is this female face of migration, and why do you think gender matters in migration policies? Thank you for asking and for giving me the opportunity to speak about this. This is a topic which is often overlooked. So first of all, why I speak about the female face of migration? Because among the increasing number of migrants and refugees worldwide, we know that women are playing an increasingly important socio-economic role. And this is first of all related to numbers. So we know again that every second migrant and third asylum seeker is female. But it is also related to a different women's attitude, to a different pattern. So while in the past women were usually traveling with their own partners or just joining them, now in most of the cases they also travel on their own. They want to be more actively involved when it comes to the society, to the job market. So they are really migrating for their own economic and educational reasons. And of course, this is a phenomenon that should prompt us to reflect or to better understand how gender has an impact on their experience. And I think that this is essential in order to develop targeted policies, which first of all take into consideration this specificity, but at the same time allows the host societies to fully value their contribution. So why gender matters? First of all, let's look at the experience of women, migrants, and refugees. We know that they are, first of all, the most vulnerable categories of migrants and refugees, which means that in most cases they face stronger or even double discrimination. It is, first of all, well established that women and girls are disproportionately affected by humanitarian emergencies, which might be at the origin of the willingness to move elsewhere. We also know that sexual and gender-based violence can be both a reason why refugees and migrants might leave their countries of origin, but they can also become, in a sense, a reality along the route or upon arrival. We also know that once they join and they reach Europe, the European continent, the European Union, they may face stronger discrimination. And one of the biggest challenges is actually accessing the job market. So it creates a vicious circle when women are not in the job market, they have more responsibilities at home, and this further reduces then their employability, their ability to attend, for instance, courses or measures to integrate better themselves. But at the same time, I think that while it is very important to look at women migrants as a vulnerable category and is essential to design appropriate and targeted policies, at the same time, it would be a mistake to see women migrants only and simply as passive victims. These will just amplify their discrimination, their isolation, and in a sense, prevents us from recognizing their agency and the positive impact of their integration.
Yeah, that's the part that I like the most about your article, that as you said, you acknowledge the fact that women migrants are a particularly vulnerable category, but you don't consider them, you stress the importance of not considering them just as passive victims, but also as political actors and drivers of change. So what is, in your opinion, this potential of women migrants that we often fail to recognize?
I think that indeed it's very important to look also at this other side of the story. And I think that it's really important to see that strengthening the participation of women in the labor market and in the society is an investment for all of us, because it contributes to economic growth, to social cohesion, to stability. It's also, in a way, an investment in future generations, because we know that women usually transfer their knowledge, their experience directly to their children. We can also see women as drivers of change. So we know that the act of migration in itself is an empowering experience. And so it's often a way to gain independence, but it also stimulates a change in social norms, in gender relations, in discriminatory practices, and can be seen also as a model for other women. Other women might be inspired, might be encouraged to play a more active role in the society, looking at what women migrants and refugees are achieving in the host society. I also think that women migrants and refugees who are in Europe sometimes are in a better position to use their own voice, to use their own knowledge of the cultural context of their countries of origin. And this is really a potentiality that stakeholders and institutions should further explore, because they really can inform the political decisions on foreign policy, or, for instance, on development, on humanitarian aid. And this is, for instance, the case of Afghanistan and Afghan women, because, of course, refugees in Europe coming from Afghanistan might be in a better position to speak out. And it's therefore, I would say, an interest of the stakeholders to really unleash what is often unseen and valued as a potentiality brought by those women. Now we are experiencing a completely different and unique case with the Ukrainian women refugees. In that case, I think that is very visible what women are bringing to our society, how they are good in integrating, how they are using their voice also on behalf of many silenced and hurt women. And so I think that this very unique case can, in a way, also be useful to pave the way for the formulation of more gender-sensitive and targeted measures, but also in a way they can contribute to shaping a different narrative around forced migration. So to conclude, what I'm trying to highlight in my article is really that promoting gender mainstreaming in migration policies has become a necessity. So it's both a social and an economic necessity, and that's why it should not be overlooked.
Yeah, thanks. And actually, there's an interesting figure that you mentioned in your article to showcase the women's contribution as political actors, in particular in peace negotiation, because you say that when women are truly and meaningfully involved in peace negotiations, the likelihood of disagreements lasting more than 15 years increases by 35%, which is mind-blowing. I mean, why aren't they always involved, right? Which brings me to my following set of questions, because as I said at the beginning, you are also president of WISE Italy, whose mission is, and I quote here from their website, to achieve gender equality and promote leadership opportunities for women in the international peace and security sector. So why did you decide to join this organization? What attracted you in their work?
So first of all, since I was a child, I've always been very passionate about gender equality and, in a way, committed to contribute to a change. Then I built my career and my background in international relations, and the combination of those elements are very well reflected in the mission of Women in International Security Italy. So we are an organization affiliated to a global network which is present in more than 50 countries. And as you said, it's about gathering, first of all, women professionals working in peace and security, in foreign policy, diplomacy, mediation, defense. And what we want to do is to promote the leadership of those women and gender equality in those fields. We know that these fields are traditionally dominated by men, and that's why we are trying to bring a change. And this is a mission I really fully embraced since the beginning as a Secretary General and now as the President. The mission is very much related to a paradox which we are still witnessing in our own society. So on the one hand, it is well established, again, that women and girls are disproportionately affected by conflict, by humanitarian emergencies. But at the same time, we know with data, with research, that women can play a really essential role addressing current security global challenges. How? Bringing their skills, their knowledge, their experience, but also a gender perspective, a more inclusive approach. So again, at the core of our mission is that image of women not only as victims, but really as actors of change. Because we know that women can bring and contribute to sustainable solutions. Sustainable solutions are those who are really reflecting the diversity of the society, the different needs, the different aspirations. And so women can play a specific role within their communities, within their families. And I think that this is, let's say, in a way, these are the premises of our work. Now, as I was mentioning, data and research, these are very useful for us because they show very clearly that, for instance, more equal society are also more peaceful and stable, which means that narrowing the gender gaps in education, in employment, in financial inclusion, in political participation has also a very positive impact when it comes to peace and stability of the society. So investing in gender equality, investing in women participation, it's also an investment useful for the whole society. It's not just a gender equality issue, it's not just about human rights. As you mentioned, when women are also involved meaningfully, for instance, in peace talks, the result is again more sustainable, is more successful. Why is that? Because women are bringing another perspective, which in most of the cases is complementary to what women can bring to the table. So it's not about a competition, it's about working together for the same objective. Women, for instance, usually bring a longer-term vision with a focus on the next generation. They bring issues to the table which are frequently overlooked: justice, national reconciliation, human rights, economic opportunities. They also bring a different kind of leadership. So usually women tend to be active listeners, empathic. They are taking into consideration also emotions, feelings. So it's this is something that it's very well recognized in the international framework, for instance, with the Women, Peace and Security Agenda. But yet, this is not reflected in the reality, in the numbers. So we know that the participation of women in peace, in security, in formal peace processes is not really happening. It's still very low. For instance, we still talk about 13% of negotiators, 6% of mediators. It's really very low. But this marginalization of women reflects, I would say, an overall situation of disparity. So, for instance, according to the World Economic Forum, the global gender gap is estimated to close in 130 years. It's a lot. It compromises not only the full participation of women, but it also deprives policymakers and institutions of the possibility to integrate different perspectives and reaching more sustainable results. So what we do in terms of activities, a lot is about advocacy and working with institutions, because this is where we can try to bring a change. A mentoring program, because we try to encourage very concretely younger women professionals to enter these fields. And then we have different international projects.
So all these, of course, in addition to your normal job, because basically you do this in the free time. I think, Loredana doesn't have 24 hours days like everyone else. Okay, so now looking forward, since we are now at the beginning of a new European legislature, what would be your recommendation to EU policymakers in terms of, as you said before, promoting gender mainstreaming in migration policies?
So I think that first of all, what's really important is to recognize what I called in the article the female face of migration. This is, in a way, the starting point to include really gender perspectives in all the policies. So concretely, I would say, first of all, what we need is a better understanding of the impact of gender in all phases of migration, which means that we need more disaggregated data, but we also need to collect women migrants' perspectives through platforms, through consultative mechanisms, so we can channel them into the decision-making process. Second point, I would say it's about funds. So we know that gender equality is usually an underfunded policy area, and this should, of course, change. I think that here it's really important to prioritize projects led by women on women's empowerment, such as, for instance, mentoring on training for migrant women. It's also about making more resources available for networks, for civil society organizations, which are trying to bring a change, promoting inclusion, providing spaces for discussion and information sharing among women, refugees, and migrants, raising also the awareness on these perspective. And then, of course, we need also targeted measures, so concrete measures which are trying to lift, in a way, the barriers to integration, such as the low investment in female education, restricted access to services, and low participation in the labor market. And this means, for instance, providing women with an independent legal status, regardless the way they entered the European Union, which might be through the Reunification Directive, adopting a women-specific enhanced employment policy, attracting female talent, embracing women's digital skills. Of course, we can start from what already exists in terms of frameworks. And again, the Women, Peace and Security Agenda adopted at the UN level in 2000 and then reflected in the policies of the European Union is an important milestone. But we can also see what already exists within the European Union itself. I mean, for instance, the Action Plan on Integration and Inclusion, the Gender Equality Strategy, they can all be leveraged and, they all can provide a good framework to further develop tailored national policies, also encouraging the exchange among member states when it comes to best practices and recognizing really this need to mainstream gender issues and ensure the inclusion of all. In terms of migration, we know that recently a revised migration and asylum policy was adopted with a new pact on migration and asylum at the EU level. There I see some potentialities in terms, for instance, of talent partnerships. And I think that we should review those possibilities in order to further or better exploit those opportunities, also encouraging the participation of women to the job market and correcting, in a way, existing disparities.
And besides women migrant, since you said that gender equality has always been, since you were a child, a priority for you, what do you think should be the EU key priorities in order to achieve gender equality?
So first of all, let me say that the last legislature made important progress in terms of gender equality at different levels. So in terms of numbers, we had more women as MEP, around 40%, more women in powerful positions, but also in terms of measures. So for instance, important directives such as the one on women in boards or the one on the transparency of pay were passed. And it's also the narrative a little bit starting to change. So EU institutions have been more vocal when it comes to gender equality, highlighting really the role and the contribution of women. But this work has not finished yet. It has to continue with determination, with perseverance. And I think that statistics and data are showing this very clearly. For instance, when it comes to the European Union, we know that we still need 60 years to close the gender gap. And for the next 5 years, I would see 3 priorities for the EU institutions. The first one is about women in the job market. There is still a gap between the number of women and men participating in a job market. And this gap is huge in countries like mine, unfortunately, like Italy. This has a severe impact on women's lives, of course. It affects their economic independence, but at the same time, it has an overall impact on the society because it translates into a loss of talents, job post, growth. So I think that there should be a targeted investment when it comes to really increasing the participation of women to the job market. Second priority is about women accessing leading positions. So the so-called area of power is the area where much progress is still needed. So we can see women, little by little breaking the glass ceiling. This is very visible. They are definitely acting as role models, but this is not really reflected at all levels of the society. And we know that if women are not in decision-making or in leadership positions, they have less chances also to contribute to shape the future of our society, which again will continue to reflect the needs, the ambitions, the positions of mostly half of the population. And again, this is a missed opportunity for all. And this brings me to the third priority, which I see, which is really related to narrative. As I was saying, the European Union, especially in the last few years, is trying to shape a different narrative on women's role in the society, not associating the gender equality only to human rights or to discrimination, but really putting this also in terms of investment, in terms of growth of our society. And I think it is important to keep the spotlight on gender equality, but also to reframe the whole debate, seeing women as drivers of change, as political actors, seeing really the contribution they can bring to the society. This can contribute in the long run to a change of mindset, which is very much needed. And it's still one of the main obstacles hampering the participation of women at all levels of the society. And I really hope that the European Union can pave the way, can lead by example in this regard. So I hope that the next legislature will keep up the work in this direction.
Thank you very much, Nora. This might be a little longer, this episode, than the others, but it reflects the fact that it's a topic that is very dear to both of us, right?
Indeed.
Yeah, we discuss this also outside the podcast. So thank you very much for joining us. And for those listening in, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and discover all the interesting insight of the European View on martencenter.eu and on all our social media channels. And again, go and listen also to Loredana's podcast, Her and the You, that you can also find on YouTube and on all our other Mater Center platforms. Thank you very much, and stay tuned for more.
This was the European View podcast, your place to navigate the insights of our policy journal. Follow the Martens Centre for more.